A warm welcome to Knopf und Nadel. I'm Annika, and today we're going to talk about a topic that has really affected me on an emotional level. I deleted my Etsy account. My shop is completely gone. And there are several reasons for this, which I'd like to share with you in this video today. This video is based on my own research. However, I will link the sources I used. The information I'm sharing with you today affects you as both sellers and buyers on Etsy. I believe everyone should be aware of the platform they're buying or selling on and also understand its business practices. If you're planning on starting a small Etsy shop, for example, then this video is also perfect for you because I'll show you, for example, the problems I had with accounting, tax-related issues, but also who else is on Etsy, in other words, who you'll be seen alongside. Reason number one for me is the other sellers on Etsy. Personally, I want nothing to do with pictures of naked women being sold, with weapons, with far-right items. I don't want my small handmade business to have anything to do with that. But those are exactly the kinds of sellers who are there, and I'm going to show you that right now. To do that, let's go to the etsy.de website. I'm not logged into my customer account right now, so I don't mess up my search history. And I've typed something in here, and honestly, the very first try was a hit. I didn't even think about what I was typing. The first naked women already pop up, and in very explicit poses too. You can probably get a rough idea of what you're seeing here, right? So I just picked up one picture, and on this seller's page, I see even worse images. So I went one step further just to see what you can actually find on Etsy. You can't forget this is a public website. Anyone can take screenshots here. And I'm sure that no one blocks Etsy on their kids' computers or phones as an inappropriate site. I mean, you can set parental controls for which sites they can and can't visit. But personally, it would never occur to me to block Etsy. But yes, with the images I found here, this site should really be for ages 18 and up. So I'm searching all over the place here because I'm trying to figure out how to block this seller. I don't see any way to do it. If I go directly to the seller, to the shop, then I have this button down here on the left. But unfortunately, I can't report the seller right now. I'll have to do that later with my private account. I'm logged out of Etsy right now so that I don't have to see this stuff in my timeline, all the other things that are going on here. So for fun, I typed in Disney because the next topic is that Etsy has zero regard for licenses, absolutely none. Now imagine you've created a cool plotter file, you take a photo of it as an Etsy seller and you post it here. And the next person can just take that photo and copy it, and Etsy does nothing about it. If not even a huge corporation like Disney can do anything about someone using their characters, symbols, and so on, it's used to produce cheap goods, for example. And I can't imagine that all the people here have paid the licensing fees for Disney. No way, absolutely not. This is all just simple product piracy. Let's see what else we can find. For example, with the plotter files, I always find it really shocking. Thousands of licenses are being violated. There are an incredible number of Disney characters and images that you can download as plotter files for €6.19. No way was a license paid for this. And Etsy doesn't even check. I mean, I've had items on Etsy myself, and you're not even asked if a license was used. Etsy doesn't check. It's simply stolen. Don't get me wrong, this doesn't just affect Disney, but also your images. For example, I also read that a major soccer club sent cease and desist letters to several sellers here because their logos were simply being used. But I did find one algorithm that intervenes. You can't find any swastikas on Etsy, only the Buddhist symbol, but I can definitely get the Imperial War flag here if I want to. So there are no limits at all. Even with t-shirts, anything with far-right symbolism is somehow secretly possible here, though not completely. I also tested what it's like with weapons. So you can't actually order functioning pistols on Etsy. These are all replica items. Nevertheless, you can buy ammunition here, which I find very concerning. And of course also historical or display swords, axes and so on. I'm not really sure if they're even allowed to be real functional weapons when they're sold. Right, so I searched for pistols again, but I really can't find any real pistols here, only 3D printed ones, for example, but also ammunition. So you can somehow get that on Etsy. With all the things we've seen now, this platform should really be for ages 18 and up. Or Etsy should get its act together and ban the sellers who distribute problematic content. I think that sellers who send nude photos, which the people in them might not even know about, should definitely be banned. I know you can't report every seller who spreads problematic content on Etsy. What's important to me is that consumer protection also plays a role. In my opinion, that's not an issue for Etsy. Etsy simply ignores it. I believe that many items aren't checked at all. That means anyone can post anything on Etsy. There are, I think, a few things that aren't allowed, which is why I didn't find any swastikas. But pornography doesn't seem to be an issue for Etsy. Personally, I also have another experience I'd like to share with you. And there's another topic that concerns the sellers. On Etsy, there's an incredible amount of cheap junk from China. You might as well just order from AliExpress. I order from Etsy because I want to buy something handmade, maybe from Europe or the USA. But I don't want to get a stinky bag full of chemicals from China when I'm being told it's from some small workshop in the Netherlands. That's exactly what happened to us. There were pictures of the workshop included. In the end, we received a package that was shipped from Germany, and inside that German package was a Chinese package. And inside that was an unbelievably stinky bag. The end of the story was, since the item was basically worthless anyway because it was cheap junk from China, we were just given a full refund, no questions asked. And now we're stuck with this weird bag from China, and of course we'll never get rid of it. Reason number 2 is about bookkeeping. Don't switch off now, it won't be boring. I promise, I'm not going to dive deep into bookkeeping. I'm not a tax consultant. If you want to sell on Etsy, I strongly urge you to get a tax consultant, even if it's just a small business. Because in every forum, whether on Etsy or other sites, you'll find different advice on how to account for it. Everyone does it differently. I think our tax authorities have no idea how to handle the accounting because Etsy has arbitrarily decided to offset your fees against your revenue. This is a complete disaster for your personal bookkeeping because you receive a payout amount that has nothing to do with the original invoice your customer paid. Personally, I'll just show you my statement from May. I made 2 sales and used Etsy ads for advertising. You can see here in this table just how many transactions this generated. First, the fees for Etsy ads were charged for each day. And on top of that, for these sales, I paid an incredible number of small fees, an incredible number of small transactions. And on top of those small fees, there are also the taxes on the fees. That means I have to make something like 9 separate entries per sale in my accounting software. Not to mention that my personal accounting software, LexOffice, has no integration with Etsy. So I had to somehow try to sort out all these fees. There are other sources that say you can just issue an invoice to Etsy and only download the fee statement and so on. So everyone tells you something different. Absolutely discuss this with your tax consultant. Otherwise, you don't stand a chance in a tax audit. The next reason for me is the unbelievably absurdly high fees on Etsy. Especially if you're a new small seller who sells smaller items, so maybe not a big leather bag for 100 euros, these fees are so high that it's almost not worth it anymore. You pay 19 cents just to list each item, but there are other great platforms you can use. For example, you can also sell and ship your items throughout Germany via classified ads. You even get in direct contact with your buyers, you can get a sense of who is buying your items, and maybe even haggle a little. It works the same way on Instagram. If you post nice photos there, buyers will contact you. It's the same with Facebook. By the way, Facebook has some really great sales groups. I'm thinking, for example, of the handmade sales group that I'm in myself and have already tested. There you'll find lots of lovely little sellers, just like you probably are. Exactly. So my conclusion is you should look for alternatives. If you are Etsy fans or even die-hard Etsy fans, you are absolutely more than welcome to stay there. And that doesn't mean you have to adopt my opinion. I'm not a tax advisor. I don't work for consumer protection. That means if you have such questions, please direct them to the right places. Of course, you can still leave comments under this video and ask a few questions. Maybe you'll share your experience too. If you're a super successful Etsy seller, you can also write in the comments how it's going for you and what things you're doing great with and what not so much. Or if, like me, you failed on Etsy and want to share your cool stories with us. But there are other great platforms you can use. For example, you can also sell and ship your items throughout Germany via classified ads. You even get in direct contact with your buyers. You can get a sense of who is buying your items and maybe even haggle a little. It works the same way on Instagram. If you post nice photos there, buyers will contact you. It's the same with Facebook. By the way, Facebook has some really great sales groups. I'm thinking, for example, of the handmade sales group that I'm in myself and have already tested. Exactly. So my conclusion is, look for alternatives. If you're Etsy fans, die-hard Etsy fans, you're more than welcome to stay there. I personally just questioned it critically once. And that doesn't mean you have to adopt my opinion. I'm not a tax advisor. I don't work for consumer protection. That means if you have such questions, please direct them to the right places. Of course, you can still leave comments under this video and ask a few questions. Maybe you'll share your experience too. If you're a super successful Etsy seller, you can also write in the comments how it's going for you and what things you're doing great with and what not so much. Or if, like me, you failed on Etsy and want to share your cool stories with us. But there are other great platforms you can use. They take a 12% sales commission, and if you apply to Amazon Handmade and get accepted, you also won't have to pay the monthly fee that other sellers have to pay. If you produce and sell a lot of products, you can also use Amazon's warehouses and Prime shipping. Feel free to check out the alternatives that utopia.de has listed here. There are also a lot of great things for artistic supplies. So, for example, even pictures that you can sell. I'll quickly show you again. If you just type e-commerce into Google, e-commerce web shop, that you immediately get suggestions for these website builders for a web shop or something. As I said, if you have a little technical know-how, I think you can handle it. And that's how you can get a website for a small price, for example. Maybe that's a good option for you too. So, an incredible amount is suggested right on the first page. And of course, I'd still like to briefly show you my site, which was built directly by an advertising agency, because that might be interesting for you too. On my site now, you can see here, it's built with WordPress. I also have a blog. In addition, I have the shop. You have great opportunities to get involved creatively here yourself. So I've acquired a few skills in WordPress to, for example, write my own blog or add articles to my shop myself. But there are other great platforms you can use. For example, you can also sell and ship your items throughout Germany via classified ads. You even get in direct contact with your buyers, can gauge who is buying your items, and maybe even haggle a bit. The same goes for Instagram. If you post nice photos there, buyers will contact you too. It's the same with Facebook. By the way, Facebook also has really great sales groups. I'm thinking, for example, of the handmade sales group that I'm in myself and have already tested. There you will find lots of little magical sellers, just like you probably are. Exactly. So my conclusion is, look for alternatives. If you are Etsy fans, die-hard Etsy fans, you are more than welcome to stay there. I personally just questioned it critically once. And that doesn't mean you have to adopt my opinion. I'm not a tax advisor. I don't work for consumer protection. This means if you have such questions, please direct them to the right places. Of course, you can still post comments under this video and ask a few questions. Maybe you'll share your experiences too. If you are a super successful Etsy seller, you can also write in the comments how it's going for you and what things you get along with really well and which not so well. Or if you, like me, failed on Etsy and want to share your cool stories with us, I think the whole community will be happy about that. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and also hit the bell if you want to know how my story continues, what other sewing patterns I'll be presenting, and what other sewing tips I have for you. Thank you so much for your attention. If you've made it all the way to the end of the video, then you've had to listen to all my frustrations. I hope you have an awesome day ahead of you anyway, and I wish you lots of fun. Take care. Bye.